Hey, welcome to the series where we ask the question, is this operator trash or top tier? If you want to know if Kapkan is trash or top tier, I'm about to tell you. But also, if you want a more in-depth guide on how to play Kapkan, stick around for the rest of the video. Real quick though, check out this funny Kapkan video I took. No one's ever looking at these Kapkan traps, and you could basically just get away with murder. I mean, this guy literally comes in, looks at the Kapkan traps, he sees all 5 of them, this is an opportunity to shoot him out, his whole team is there to look too, and he still goes through them. Alright, so let's answer the question, is he trash or is he top tier? Well, the truth, as most things are, a little bit more complicated than that. You see, Kapkan will be an absolute menace in the lower ranks, and in the upper ranks, he's kind of only used to slow down the push. But if a team drones really well, it's pretty hard to get anything good with Kapkan off. But you can still use him in the early rounds, so that in later rounds, the team, tries to slow down a little bit, and it's kind of like having a Kapkan there when he's not really. Something important to take in consideration, though, is that the reason a lot of people gravitate towards Kapkan is because if you're having an off day and you don't feel like you're playing on the top of your game, you can get out of the round, lose a gunfight, and still, get an EDD trap off and take someone out of the fight. So really, Kapkan is a top tier operator, especially if the other team is droning, if you're in the lower ranks, or you're just not playing all that well today. Alright, let's hop into the guide. Do you remember that card game that we used to play when we were kids? You'd flip all the cards over and you were supposed to remember exactly where those were. I could never do it, but when played at a pretty high level, Kapkan's a lot like that card memory game. There's a lot of stuff you've got to remember, and a little bit of math, while you're probably taking on gunfights. Before we get into the complex nature of this character, we should probably go over the loadout. Kapkan's primary weapons are pretty mid, average, whatever you want to call them. I would even maybe say bad. I've been playing with the 919 VSN for like 10 years now, and I know it's not that great. I also think it's generally usable, but the SAS G12, or the SPAS 12 is what it's called in other games, it's basically unusable. I've seen other people play it, I've seen the pros play it, I just don't think it's viable. It's not even fun to play, really. For secondary weapons, you have the GSH and the PMMM. Oh man, that is so hard to say. Anyways, the PMM is a 61 damage handgun, and it has a lower capacity, but I've never really found myself running out of ammo when I need to pull it out. And that damage is insane. I mean, that's cav level damage right there. 61 damage, that's just nuts. For secondary gadgets, you have an impact grenade and a nitro cell. And I would say unless you have a purpose already before you even start the round, you know where you're playing, you know what you need to use to open up a wall. If you need that impact grenade, go ahead and take it. But you get so many nitro cell kills. I mean, all the time, constantly. Take the nitro cell. Alright, heads up, for this next part, we're getting pretty deep. Probably deeper than any other YouTube video you've seen on an operator guide. I think for most players, as they're casually getting on Kapkan, their idea of how to play the character involves randomly putting traps places and then hopefully trying to get someone to run through them, and maybe they die, maybe they're hurt, and they make for an easy assist later. But you're not really here for that, are you? You're here for advanced Kapkan strategies and theory. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to start with the things that are easiest to implement first, and then we're going to work our way up to the things that are a little bit harder and more complicated. Remember, no matter how well you know what you're supposed to do, it still takes experience and practice. Plus, every map on the game is different, and you'll have to learn how to implement these things on every single map. Okay, right off the bat, the easiest thing to implement right now is not to put Kapkan traps next to your team's gadgets. If you have like a mute jammer or something there, it's definitely going to blow up, and it's just going to irritate your team and probably hurt you, maybe even lose a round. This next one's a little bit more complicated. Typically you'll see a Kapkan who wants to be an anchor, and that's usually because they're not super confident with aiming at the head, and they want them to kind of run through a trap, so they only have to mark them off with one bullet in the, big center mass target. Instead of anchoring into the bomb, it might be a good idea to kind of set up the site as if it's an onion that has layers. So you have traps, and then you're playing map control, which means you're kind of outside of the bomb but have a place to retreat to. And so they have to come through you, and then you have a place to retreat, and then you have the rest of your teammates. Speaking of teammates, your teammates should be set up holding the map in different places, not all stacked up in the same place. So as a Kapkan player, it's probably best that you go find a spot that they're likely to come into still, but isn't getting into the way of other people's stuff. Like say you have a Fenrir next to a Kapkan trap, that's just going to blow up and it's not helping anyone. So how do you know where to put your Kapkan traps at? Well, there's a few things that go into this. Again, we're going to kind of organize this from easiest to implement to most difficult. So the easiest thing to implement is just stop putting them on windows. They don't really work. They kind of break the barricade down. They're already ADS because they're worried about getting shot from there, and then they end up just seeing your trap anyways. The second part of this is understanding how the attacking team plays. Now, most siege teams play one of two ways. They try to get directly into the bomb, or they try to get in across the building and work their way back. Now, if a team feels like they're getting peeked a lot, if there's a lot of jump outs and they're not really good at taking care of those, then they're probably going to try to get into the building as fast and safely as possible. These teams are usually a little bit better at flank watch, so these kind of work and vice versa. So if you know that a team is coming directly into a bomb, they're probably going to continue to do that, so your traps can't really be far outside of the map. Whereas some teams that are really afraid of getting popped out on, they're probably going to try to get in as soon as possible, which means you have to just kind of put them at doors and windows that are closest to the spawn that's the safest for the attacking team, depending on the map. Wow, that sure is a lot to remember, isn't it? You've got to know where every bomb is on every map. You have to know where every entrance indirectly into the bomb and directly going into the bomb is. And then you have to remember how the team played from last round to try to counter that now that you're playing at a different set of bombs. Now do you kind of get why I was referencing that memory game earlier? Kapkan is a very memory-intensive operator. But wait, there's more. Because now, Kapkan has the ability to set up multiple traps on one door, which means that you could either have one go off or two go off, and that opens up a plethora of math that you have to do inside of your head. So if it's someone's a one armor character who runs over two traps, they die. But if they're a two armor character that runs over two traps, then they're going to get knocked down. And if they're a three armor running over two traps, you get the idea. I mean, it's an insane amount of different combinations that could be happening. So to use your Kapkan traps to control the map and give intel to your team where they're coming from, it requires an insane amount of memory. So how do you deal with those challenges? Well, first you want to start with trying to adapt to the enemy team. That should always be your priority, because a lot of this is going to come through experience, and if you're constantly doing the same traps every single time, yeah, you could eventually find out which ones work, but as you grow and you get better and you play in higher ranks, then people aren't going to be falling for those anymore, and it's going to be, you know, dependent on whether or not you can adapt to the team you're playing with. So I could probably go on about this forever, but I'm going to do one last section here. This last part is giving the other team a false sense of security or making them insecure about what's going to happen next. Ideally, you want to make the other team miserable, mess with their head, make them wonder if they even really want to play this game. Try making one of your traps very visible and then setting two up at the bottom of the door. That way they get a false sense of security, they hit the trap, they said, wow, that's really dumb, and then they walk through and you get a free kill. If you lose a round and you were playing Kapkan before, you can pick him again, and if you find yourself in a position where you have to retake the bomb, you might want to put one of those Kapkan traps in between the two bomb sites. They were there last time, and they're pretty sure you don't play like that, so they're not going to look, and it could come down to winning the round. You can do 5 single traps in one round, and then you can do like 3 and 2, a mix like that. That way the team feels like, oh, if I do run over a Kapkan trap, well, it's not going to kill me. You know, I got to worry about this gunfight. And then the next round they come in and you've got all of a sudden they're stacked up, ready to take out all their health. I mean, they're going to be so confused by the end of this. You know, we're playing serious games here with them. The last thing that Kapkan really does that I don't think any other operator does except for maybe Frost is when you pick him in one round, like say the first round, they're still going to be looking for all of the Kapkan traps for the next 2 rounds. So it slows down the push, completely takes care of that. And you could just pick another character, and so now it's really like you're like have 6 gadgets going at one time, which is outstanding. All right, last quick piece of advice for you. Shoot the drones. If the drones mark you, your chances of getting a Kapkan trap, especially early into the round, it drops by a lot. I wish I had some numbers on that. I don't, but it's considerable. Alright guys, well if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. But also leave a comment on what operator you think I should do next, or if you think I should go even deeper on these characters, because I could literally talk about this for hours. Keep shooting straight, folks.